Hey everyone, I wanted to go over the new and exciting news we got for Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch. Capcom has put out the last batch of expected interviews before the launch of the game later this week, and I gathered some of the most interesting quotes so we can get a little bit better of idea of what the developer's intentions are with this title. I do expect the producer and the director, who have been rather talkative through this entire process, to do more post-launch interviews and give us their gauge reactions to the launch of the game. We also know that there's quite a hefty ton of DLC in the works, so a roadmap should be made available in the near future. So starting out, Director Ichinose spoke about the number of tutorial quests provided in Monster Hunter Rise, and how the development team thought it was a good idea to provide more of them this time around. While not forced on you to do or even attempt, these are more guided towards first-timers of the series, guiding users on mechanics and showing them the way to how to handle a weapon better and the tactics that are available. He was asked about their relationship with Nintendo regarding the development and how they got the game to look so good in the hybrid system. Director Ichinose stated that all the praise actually goes towards the RE engine. While it was their first time working with it and the Nintendo Switch, the engine truly allowed them to flex out their vision appropriately and make the game look as best as they could while still optimizing it to the best of their capabilities. This is actually something that was touched upon in a previous interview, where he also stated that nothing was actually cut. All of the ideas that the development team wanted to implement eventually found their way into the game, unlike the previous 3DS entries where they had to perhaps scrap some of the things due to the limitations of the system, but that was not the case this time around. He also expounded that the team was extremely excited to put together a package that will give players the freedom to not just play in handheld, but also docked. That type of flexibility is something that they were chasing, and being able to fully provide that in both offline and online is something that they're very proud to actually accomplish. When asked about the Rampage and what it signifies in Rise, Director Ichinose had a rather excellent response that I will simply quote directly. The Rampage is one of the biggest new elements of the game. It's both a new gameplay element as well as an important story element, and the entire story is focused around the Rampage. Gameplay wise, you have to protect Camera Village from the horde of monsters that are trying to break through the barriers. Rampage quests play a little bit different from the regular quests, as normally you'd go out, hunt a monster, then go back to the village, but these type of quests feel more like a tower defense game. They're very two different distinct playstyles. One of the important details coming out of the preliminary playthroughs of the game is that Rampage quests, and specifically farming Rampage monsters, is the bulk of the endgame experience, and while I won't get into that here, I actually have a video about that in the works for Friday discussing this specific topic in length. It does seem like the game is actually tailored for them in much more ways than previously expected. Another interesting thing of note was when director Ryosu Sugimoto was asked regarding the MPLN servers for online multiplayer that Nintendo has put into place. If you recall, recent reports came out that Nintendo ditched the old infrastructure and started favoring this new technology to give players a much more stable online experience, and Monster Hunter Rise, specifically the first demo, was the testbed for this technology. Mr. Sugimoto said that while they don't have the specific data on that, since that's on Nintendo's end, they have been extremely helpful in figuring out how to make things work with Capcom. They've made sure to get the game to run as smoothly as possible in the multiplayer environment, and hope to continue that going forward into the future. Director Ichinose also clarified that you can ride just about all of the big monsters in the game. The only ones that you can't ride are smaller creatures like Kelby or Jaggies, but everything else should be mountable thanks to the wire bug. On that same topic, he once again reiterated the importance of both Palamutes and the wire bug, and how Palamutes were designed to complement the wire bug and cover for any sort of the weaknesses that it has. While the wire bug gives you freedom of movement vertically as opposed to horizontally like the Palamutes, they're designed to let you choose how to engage with an encounter and how to explore the maps. There isn't an area that you can't reach in the game either through the wire bug or the Palamute, because everything has a way to be reached either by air or by climbing. On that note, he also stated that while there's no precise route to a monster, endemic life has been placed strategically so you can choose to pick them up on your path to the monster. There's also the option to pick up materials, and while not directly tied to your strength or the monster's strength that you're about to engage with, they could always give you an advantage at the appropriate time. There's also plenty of secret endemic life to discover, and the occasional hidden locations with some rare materials, items, and even creatures. Producer Sujimoto was asked to clarify the crossover bonuses between Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 when that game releases later this year. And while he did not say what they would actually be, he did state that your save data is what the system will automatically use to detect if you actually qualify to receive any of the bonuses. So if your Switch has Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 save data, you should be able to unlock some goodies on both games when Stories 2 actually drops later in the year. Alongside those lines, he was also asked about the crossover campaigns with other franchises and what could they expect to see in Rise, since Monster Hunter World and Iceborne specifically saw a ton of crossover pairings with different franchises not really ever thought of when it comes to Monster Hunter, like Witcher for example. He said that because those things are actually decided on the fly, it doesn't require much advance notice. They're usually revealed once the campaign is actually confirmed by the marketing team. So expect some things in the future with other franchises, but he was not ready to divulge what's actually in the horizon with other franchises. An interview with the illustrator Inochi-san was also made available where they discuss how the art for the game came about. This refers to both the ink-like illustrations, monster portraits, and even decorations that you'll see all over Camera Village, giving it that ancient Japanese flair that the game has been constantly praised for. They explained that when it comes to in-game lore, Guildmaster Hojo is actually in charge of drawing the quest notifications and alongside the monster icons and sketches. Because of that and his nature, Inochi-san made them a bit softer, with swift brushstrokes. You can actually imagine Hojo having been rushed to get these quest notifications out ASAP to get more hunters out to the field as fast as possible. When it comes to many of the art pieces that you'll be seeing all over Camera Village, the idea of katazome was actually implemented. This is a dyeing process in which a small blade is used to cut out a figure out of thick paper and then dye it accordingly. You can actually see some in the game like Castletown, and there's plenty of ninja motifs all around town, specifically in the steelworks. Every area in the game has some art to discover, so they actually hope that you keep a sharp eye to see if you can actually spot it. When asked about their decisions for the UI and what it is that they actually want you to focus on during a quest, Inochi-san actually made it clear that legibility was at the forefront in both handheld and dock mode. While the UI was designed with handheld in mind, they made sure to include all of the relevant information on the screen as cleanly as possible, so you have to just glance over to see all the details you need. Returning hunters will find some familiarity with the HUD, while new ones will see that all the information presented is important in one way or another. Even side things like chat stickers are relegated to the side while still having a relatively large area of display with transparent zoning to not cover up any of the action. Things like proper sizing for font and color text were given special attention to make things pop as something actually happens. This is actually tied to sound cues, and even animations to make it so you're constantly in the know as to what's happening in all your surroundings. Then there's the zone map that has just about everything that you actually want to see sectioned off in specific tabs, giving you a little or as much information as you want. The last interviews I'll be going over are with Kosuke Tanaka, the game's sound director, who was actually in charge of overseeing the general sound concepts of the game, as well as Satoshi Hori, the lead composer. He was in charge of the actual music and the soundtrack for the game, deciding on the scale of the situation and which instruments best complement the theme for each one of the areas. Mr. Tanaka was asked what were the goals of the sound makeup for Monster Hunter Rise. He stated that their goal was to make it sound catchy and easy to understand, a direct contrast to Monster Hunter World's Iceborne, artsy and delicate with layers theme. This automatically led the team to use very similar sounds for things that were in previous games in the series, as hunters would be familiar to these sound cues, while the new ones having something similar of the same profile going forward. He also explained that in order to make certain maps stand out and give them a sense of realism, the team set out to do field recordings across a variety of places. Songbirds, chirping cicadas, ambient noise in caves, bells from a temple, and other sounds are incorporated to give each one of the maps a legitimate feel in a place that you actually want to visit. Creating a living and breathing ecology with a touch of realism is something that they heavily focused on and hope they were able to achieve it. Hori explained that there's a ton of traditional Japanese instruments that were used in the music of the game. Shakuhakis, shamisen, shinobue, koto, biwas, hishirikis, ryurikis, taikos, atariganes, kagurasuzu, and even horagais, are all types of unusual instruments and perhaps not known by many of the players outside of Japan, but they are part of Japanese lore for generations, so their implement of the game came specifically special in the sound profile of the game. That's not to say that there aren't live orchestral performances. These also convey the strength of the monsters and the scale of the world in general. Proof of a Hero Rise version is specifically a song that the team had a lot of love putting together, using orchestral themes with Japanese instruments being fused together, brought together the Proof of Hero concept that often symbolizes the people of Camera Village, fighting against the onslaught on the Rampage and encouraging themselves and the player alike through the song in order to protect their homes and their way of life. This is a big focus for the game and the music in general. Another interesting tidbit is that director Ichinose requested that Satoshi Hori put a new twist on the old tracks of previous monsters. They decided to actually add vocals to every new piece and all returning pieces, so your favorite monsters will have something of a new revamped theme song, but also a version with full-on vocals included. Another insightful tidbit is that because hunters can now speak, not just do traditional Monster Hunter language, but also Japanese and English, picking a voice for your character has become a bit more important. The spoken dialogue for each voice often represents a personality, so the script reflects that. Your hunter will say things that sound realistic to what a hunter with a certain personality would actually say in the middle of a hunt, not just having different voice profiles. This makes the game feel more personalized, but also lets you select one that matches you a bit more closer than in previous games. The team decided to add the option for hunters to actually talk for several reasons, because in previous portable entries, real-life players would actually get to play locally and there was little reason for your characters to be talking or given directions because you would actually do that in real life. Now with online being more robust, the hunters themselves can guide or warn you of something actually happening, but also each other, so you can hear the hunter make a call out of an attack that isn't directly your hunter speaking, so you too can be ready for what's actually coming. This also makes it easier for those who don't wish to partake in voice chat functionality while still playing online. They also clarified that the language you hear is based on your settings, so if you're playing with a Japanese player, for example, who obviously has their hunter speak in Japanese, and their hunter speaks, they will hear their character speaking in Japanese, but you will hear it in English. The team has gone to great lengths to make sure this is interchangeable, so you can set that to your liking, or simply turn them off if you don't wish to hear them at all. And that's the last wave of interviews that I'll actually be going over. There were some real interesting nuggets of information there that I hope you guys can appreciate. And with the release of the game being so near, I hope many of you are eager to start seeing these things in actual play. If you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya!